have a question for you. What cartoon kids show would you love to see make a comeback? There's the obvious choices, Disney's Recess, The Weekenders, or even The Proud Family. Then we have some of the more uncommon picks. What's with Andy, Fillmore, George Shrinks, Jacob Tutu, I could go on forever. The late 90s, early 2000s era of Canadian animated cartoons is beyond insane. There's so many good shows, it's actually ridiculous. I'm going to be a massive troll and use my personal choice on Monster by Mistake. Now, what is Monster by Mistake, you may ask? Well, sit back, relax, and let me fill you in. This is going to be a long one. What initially drew me to Monster by Mistake when it first debuted in 1996 was that it had CGI graphics. This was right around when CGI was becoming more of a common trend in kids' TV shows. Reboot, Butt Ugly Martians, and the Donkey Kong Country series are only a small sample of other shows to use CGI during this time period. Part of the intrigue of watching these shows was the feeling of experiencing something new. Games were becoming 3D, and so were our TV shows. It was almost the new millennium, baby! Things couldn't get any bigger or better than this. All the best kids shows out at the time were done in the classic 2D animation style. New shows coming out with CGI was like being blindsided with culture shock. As far as my young mind knew, this wasn't just a new style or trend, this is how shows were going to be from now on. Thankfully, I was wrong. Despite being visually impressive back then, these shows haven't really aged all that well. I distinctly remember choosing not to watch Reboot when I was younger, strictly because I thought it looked gross, even though all my friends loved it. I'm gonna have to sit down and watch that show someday. Now that I'm older and not as quick to brush things off, I'm curious to see if it lived up to all the hype and praise it received. For now, I sit here ready to potentially praise Monster by Mistake. That's the kind of person I am. A role model to absolutely nobody. When I watched Monster by Mistake back in the day, I never tried to watch each and every episode when it aired. From the few fuzzy memories I have, I remember it being kinda corny and mediocre. That was over 20 years ago, so I figure now's as good a time as any to revisit my past and see if Monster by Mistake lives up to being okay. We kick things off with Gorgul and his servant. This guy has no name. He's just Gorgul's whipping boy. Even the credits simply list him as the servant. Can he at least get a servant-sounding name, like Igor? Doesn't he look like an Igor? Anyways, Gorgul goes off on a tangent on how everyone will bow to him and crush anyone who goes against him once he's freed from his hamster ball. Trust me when I say you won't ever forget his name, because he'll let us know again and again and again.
Gorgul.
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 Gorgul. Gorgul.
Gorgul.
The servant brings in a magic book to... You know what? I'm calling him Igor from now on. That's your new name, buddy. Igor has just found the Book of Spells and the Jewel of Fenrath, both of which are needed to free Gorgul. These plans are quickly put on hold when Igor trips on a wooden plank and tosses the jewel out a window, conveniently bouncing into the back of a pickup truck, and it goes off. Good job. I love this scene because you can gauge the two and how their relationship together is almost immediately. Gorgul being the overcompensating, power-hungry villain, and Igor being the dim-witted klutz who never does anything right. As Igor leaves to fetch the jewel on Gorgul's demands, we meet Johnny the Ghost. Full name, Johnny B. Dead. 10 out of 10 name. Returning from some recent travels, he's surprised to see a creep like Gorgul taking up shop in his abandoned and presumably haunted mansion. Johnny tells Gorgul to leave, Gorgul says no, Johnny goes, then just tosses him out the window. Nah, I'm kidding, I wish he did though, that would've been pretty troll. However, Johnny does threaten Gorgul and he backs down quickly. This scene does a great job of showcasing Gorgul's other half. That despite constantly puffing out his chest saying he'll do this and do that, he really can't do anything. He's small, he's weak, and he's helpless. He has to rely on having power trips over people that have no self-worth in order to do anything. Moments later, the jewel falls off the truck in front of the main character of the show, Warren Patterson. While inspecting the jewel, his toy car gets away from him and bumps into Billy Castleman, local bully and connoisseur of stained turtlenecks. Being the jerk that he is, Billy decides to steal Warren's toy car. Suddenly, Warren's sister Tracy shows up, letting him know that since it's dark out, it's about time they head home. Upon finding out what just took place, she goes to confront Billy, who retreats into Johnny's house. Now, we are being introduced to a lot of characters in the span of about 5 minutes, but these 6 right here is what the Monster by Mistake story revolves around the most. So, prepare to get invested, because these are the characters decided upon to reel us in and make us want to watch consistently. While wandering the house in search of Billy, Warren and Tracy bump into Gorgul. Gorgul notices they have the jewel and tricks them into freeing him from his ball. While reading the spell, Warren sneezes, making it go haywire. Gorgul throws a tantrum, the kid realizes the mistake they almost made, and bolt out of there. While walking home defeated, Warren sneezes and turns into a 7-foot furless Sully with Call of Duty Blue Tiger camo skin. That escalated quickly. Tracy realizes that Warren sneezing was the cause for this. She whips the clump of dirt in his face to make him sneeze again, returning him to his normal human form. A little crude, but it sure does the trick. Most of the shows I loved growing up, and probably the ones you loved growing up too, had lead characters which were cool because of so many different things. The monumental adventures they went on, radical attitude, their character design, or out of actually being cool. Warren doesn't have any of these traits. As a matter of fact, he has none of them. Probably the most uncool type of person to center a TV show around. We'll see more of Warren's normalcy as the show moves on, but hey, they went all in with it, and that's a risk I don't think many companies would ever be willing to take, so props for that. Out of the blue, Warren's toy car zips past him with Billy trying to steal it back. Some slapstick comedy acts later, Warren is cornered with nowhere to go. While hiding in a shed, he intentionally makes himself sneeze to turn to the monster to scare away Billy. We then get to hear one of the most prepubescent screams possibly ever. Warren and Tracy then head back to the mansion to locate the Book of Spells. When they arrive, Johnny's playing a trumpet, cause that's how he rolls. At first, Johnny's annoyed. He's wondering why can't people stay the hell out of his house. After a short conversation, he realizes Warren and Tracy are there because of Gorgul's BS. Finally fed up, he tells Gorgul to leave. Gorgul says no. Johnny then demands he leave, to which Gorgul kills him. Wow. While all this is going on, Igor comes back with the Jewel of Fenrath, and after spotting the kids, he decides to tie him up. In the span of about 1 minute, this show went from 0 to 100. We've essentially transitioned from the joy of painting to the first 48. From kids playing outside before bedtime to first-degree murder and a literal hostage situation. Billy sneezes after a spider lands on his nose, which frees him and Tracy from the rope holding them in place. Now you know where this background image came from. They then sneak upstairs where they discover Igor trying to free Gorgul. Now, this is where we enter the crescendo, the apex of this episode, if you will. We get a 3-minute long bit of the kids, Igor, and Gorgul all fighting over the book and jewel. It's like watching a skit by the Three Stooges. There's teasing, there's tripping, there's juggling, it's all here. Even though this specific scene gets long in the tooth rather fast, it's made up for the simple fact that Johnny's just lying there dead on the floor. Igor eventually gets his hand on the Book of Spells, Jewel of Fenrath, and successfully reads out the spell. That opens a black hole vortex instead of releasing Gorgul. This guy really is a walking, talking problem, isn't he? Gorgul and Igor get sucked into the portal, with the book not far behind. Warren turns himself into the monster and grabs it just in the nick of time. We also get to see Johnny's lifeless corpse slide along the ground like a puck on an air hockey table. Warren plays the trumpet and Johnny springs back to life. It was all a ruse, he's not dead after all. I'll admit it, Johnny, you got me. The whole part where you got poisoned and died? Really thought you died. You got me good. With the black hole spiraling out of control and the Jewel of Fenrath pulling closer, the mansion gets destroyed inside out. As the dust settles, Warren and Tracy realize they've come out on top, to a certain extent. Gorgul and Igor may be gone, but Warren's still a monster and Johnny's now homeless. Now that I think of it, super easy to feel for Johnny at this point. Arrives home, gets poisoned, dies, comes back to life, then has his house torn to shreds in front of his eyes. Caught in the middle of this for no other reason than for existing. It's a struggle from the womb to the tomb, my guy. Thankfully, Warren and Tracy offer Johnny a place to stay. Their house. I'm sure that'll go over well with Mom and Dad. Johnny accepts their offer, and they walk on home. Not before bumping into Billy Castleman, who once again gets spooked and lets out a throat-shredding puberty yelp. That's how the episode ends. Perfect. What a wild ride. I can honestly say that after watching this episode, I genuinely want to see what else this show has to offer. There's so many questions left unanswered, and so many cliffhangers I want to see the end result to. Does Warren eventually find the spell that cures him of his monster curse? What do Gorgul and Igor do now? What becomes of Johnny and his trampled trumpet? Even the hypotheticals I was making up in my head got me really excited. We have this big, fat book of spells, and if we're working off the premise that each time anyone reads a spell, something crazy happens, there's so many fun episodes to be had. One thing that sucks hard about trying to watch these kid shows from the late 90s / early 2000s is that the resolution looks like complete trash. It looks like it's been recorded off someone's VCR and uploaded in 144p. It's abysmal. Luckily for me, that's not the case. I have not all, but most of the episodes at my disposal and in crystal clear quality to boot. How, you ask? Well, on YouTube. In 1080p. I'm beyond baffled that almost the entirety of a random Canadian CGI kid show is uploaded to YouTube. But you know what? I think this is an official Monster by Mistake channel. Custom banner, custom thumbnails, and a very corporate sounding about section. This is all speculation, but it's too coincidental, don't you think? There's no links that go to a different website where you have to pay to watch, or any social media links either. It's simply most of the episodes uploaded to this YouTube channel. As far as episode distribution goes, we have the entire first season, the entire second season, and the first 4 episodes from the third and final season. The most recent upload was January 3rd, 2019, well over a year ago. So I'm assuming what's here is going to be all that's ever uploaded to this channel. Kinda sucks that the entire catalog isn't here, but I'm pretty sure I'll be able to get my Monster by Mistake fix from what's available here. Going through the first season, there isn't much overall plot development, but there are some really funny episodes that stick out. One of my personal favorites being episode 6, Monster Mayhem. Warren's outside playing soccer with his friend Freddy. Warren accidentally flattens Freddy's ball by spiking it on a nearby fence. Freddy gets pissed and leaves Warren to dwell in his unintentionally created misery. After hearing about what happened, Tracy looks through the book of spells to see if there's anything that can bring the ball back to normal. She finds a spell, casts it out, and once again a spell goes out of control, but it manages to hit the ball and all is well. However, a small bit of magic slipped out the window and landed on Freddy, who was coming back to apologize for how he acted earlier. The magic that touched Freddy turns him into a soccer ball. Most of the episode centers around Warren, Tracy, and Johnny trying to reverse the spell and get Freddy back to normal. There's a scene where Freddy causes a ruckus bouncing from wall to wall in Warren's room. Warren's mom hears the commotion, enters the room, and we get this gem.
Freddy?
Mom, don't!
Ah! What's he doing?
Oh, just, bouncing around.
Well, okay, but it's not healthy to stay in the closet.
That's not even subtle. That's just the script writers putting in their own ideals into the show. That's one other thing you can count on from Monster by Mistake, is for some weird random nonsense to abruptly interrupt the flow out of nowhere. This is the kind of show you put on as background noise as a nostalgia trip when you're sleepy. Then right when you're on the verge of passing out, you hear something like,
"You use the girls' washroom?"
No.
Gender exploration at Warren's age is very common, Tom. I've been reading
Wait, what? Always out of the blue, and right when you least expect it. Like every other kids show, Monster by Mistake has a bunch of filler episodes. I'd actually argue that there's more filler episodes than episodes that focus on the quote-unquote monster plot. Fortunately, these episodes ended up being what I hoped would happen. That being various spells putting the kids in weird and wacky scenarios. One episode, Warren and Tracy babysit some crazy lady's kid. While doing so, they turn his toy robot into a gigantic, destructive transformer. Another episode, Tracy accidentally sends Warren back in time. Warren finds a kid version of his father who's lost and needs help getting home. They bump into Billy Castleman's dad, lol by the way, and features a huge action chase scene involving a rogue runaway hot air balloon. It's ridiculous for sure, but it's good for some brainless dumb fun. Seeing Warren, Tracy, and all the other characters caught up in these insane events were way more entertaining to watch than any of the overarching Gorgul story-driven episodes. Any episode focused on Warren turning back to normal always ends up with him hiding from insert interchangeable name here. Instead of any progress being made on turning him back to normal, they're all one big repeating game of hide and seek. Gorgul never gets closer to being freed, and Warren never gets closer to reversing the spell. There also aren't any big or small plots that string along for multiple episodes. Each episode is its own special blend of unique weirdness that ends within the same time frame. The first episode ended with a build-up for what I thought would be a long-standing Warren-Gorgul battle of sorts, but Gorgul and Manslave Igor don't even return to the show until episode 4, almost halfway through the season. I will say that each episode, regardless of content or overall structure, all does a fantastic job of expanding each main character's personality. Gorgul being a narcissistic prick on the outside, but a cowardly, miserable loser on the inside. Igor being a completely inept doofus. Tracy being the concerned voice of reason, Johnny being the lighthearted troll and quality mood lightener, Billy Castleman being a fat dick, and Warren sneezing.
Guess not. Who cares?
Seriously, that's the most interesting thing about Warren is that he sneezes, which has nothing to do with his personality. The final episode of the first season doesn't finish, create, or cliffhang any plots. It's handled like any other episode, which is kinda sad, honestly. I'm not sure what to expect for season 2. Can you really blame me? Hopefully it's more of the same, but with a bit more plot development. Would that be too much to ask for? Probably. Well, some things remain the same. Characters being silly, goofy situations, slapstick comedy spots. The usual stuff has been untouched. One pleasant surprise that threw me off while watching season 2 was a genuine, sincere attempt to really flesh out the world of Monster by Mistake. Side characters are given more prominent roles and are more individualized. They're more important than silly little one-time pop-up spots, with most of the episodes revolving around these side characters' relationships with Warren and Tracy, as well as appearing in future episodes down the line. The episode live from Pickford focuses on news anchor Seth Blanders. He devotes all his time and resources available with the hopes of capturing footage of the monster to expose him to the world. He thinks he's an evil genius, but everyone else knows better. The episode Tracy's Jacket features Tracy's love interest, Daryl. She tries her damnedest to steal his heart over from rival crush Susan by wearing a snappy, mean-spirited, talking jacket. Okie dokie. We even get an episode where Johnny reunites with his old bandmates, Frankie and Louie, who also are ghosts. Louie reminds me of Voodoo Vince a little bit. During this episode, the three go back to their ragtag hooligan days, messing with people and being delinquents. Johnny realizes having this juvenile mindset isn't as fun as it used to be. When he tries to get Frankie and Louie to relax a bit and calm down, things get out of hand and they begin terrorizing the city. This is a complete 180-degree turn from how season 1 carried itself and is executed so much better. I can feel the love and attention put in here. The people who worked on this cared outside of working on something most people looked at as just another kid's show. There's a drastic shift in tone going from the buffoon-esque humor for cheap kiddie laughs in season 1 to making people, locations, and events matter in season 2. All in all, massive improvement, a huge step up. Be that as it may, I still have a few very small nitpicks. These mainly have to do with what I thought would mean more in Monster by Mistake, with the show being around for this long at this point. Gorgul doesn't even make a return until episode 5, so once again almost halfway through the season, and appears in a total of only 3 episodes. His importance is dumbed down to an almost pathetic level. The feud between Gorgul and Warren now takes a backseat for side characters and an individualized sequence of event episodes. This, however, is still much better than what most of season 1 has to offer. Mainly because we finally get a resolution to Gorgul and Warren's long-standing tug-of-war battle. Gorgul wins. Yeah, he gets freed and captures Warren, Tracy, and Johnny. I can honestly say I didn't see that one coming. My other gripe is about Warren when he transforms into the monster. It's handled a lot more recklessly. It's no longer a concern for people to spot the monster or something the main cast even worries about. Now Warren changes into the monster at the drop of a hat or for little to no reason. Its role has transitioned from a legitimate plot point to a convenient script flipper. Going into season 3, I'm not really sure what to do. Going off of only 4 episodes isn't really all that fair to directly compare it to the 2 other seasons that we just looked at. I don't want to end on such an anticlimactic note, but guess what? We don't have to. I thought I'd have to climb mountains to find any of the remaining episodes of season 3. Fortunately, my search was short-lived. There they are, sitting there without being taken down due to copyright. Like, anybody cares. Season 3 is the ultimate mixed bag. Let's start with the glaring issue. The CGI quality takes a noticeable dip. People look more plasticky and have more unnatural, unfitting movements. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Get this. About a third of the way through the season, the CGI quality completely falls off a cliff. This is something else. It's so jarring and weird and gross. Things were getting bad already, but this, oh boy. The art style is the same for 2 complete seasons, then boom! They blindside you like a knife in the back with this astronomical downgrade. I would go as far as saying that Warren and Tracy are completely unrecognizable from how they looked originally. If you saw the 2 different styles of them with no context apart from each other, you wouldn't even know they're the same people from the same show. Just because the CGI fell deep down to the bottom of the well doesn't necessarily mean the episodes get worse, so to say. This is where the upside rolls in. Beginning with episode 13, Monster on Purpose, Warren, Tracy, and Johnny decide to use the gel and spellbook to travel to Fenrath to solve this monster problem once and for all. This carries throughout the rest of the season with an all-new cast of creative characters who become part of the usual bunch. Wow, it's almost like that of a normal TV show, and what I just hope would have happened multiple seasons ago. The new characters bring a breath of fresh air to the show. Red is super similar to Ashley Spinelli from Disney's Recess, the very tough, intense tomboy muscle of the group. She may be small, but don't get on her bad side. Kibo's a chameleon, possibly? Kinda looks like Frogger if he wasn't a frog. He's incredibly obnoxious and annoying as all hell, but all he wants to do is play.
Let's play! Let's play! Play, play, play!
He also has a shape-shifting ability that allows him to change into whoever he wants, whenever he wants, wherever he wants, which results in some pretty funny dialogue. It's like an undercover alien trying to act like a human.
Dad? Hi, Dad. I thought you went out to find Mom a birthday present.
Yes, I thought this would do nicely.
Kragon is a large, brutish mercenary who will capture anyone or anything so long as he gets some of that sweet, sweet moolah. Though I'm not sure if Kragon's name is Kragon or if Kragon is a Kragon. Kragon? See, there's multiple things that look like him, but they're never addressed by name. It's kind of similar to Toad or the Toads from the Mario series. What answer is the right answer? Your guess is as good as mine. I had to save the best for last. Buckle your seatbelts, because I promise, you're not ready for this one. He's back! Morgul. You heard me correct. This is, in fact, Morgul. Morgul is Gorgul's twin brother. He himself trapped Gorgul so he could rule Fenrath instead. You know, always thought Gorgul was a naturally hateable person. All his whining and moaning, griping and screaming about wanting the Book of Spells and jewels so he can take over Fenrath, starting to make a lot more sense now. All these characters combined with the quirky, mystical fantasy setting of Fenrath finally gives Monster by Mistake purpose and a sense of direction I wish it had since finishing up episode 1. There's action, suspense, drama, emotional clashes, oh my! With practically everyone too, no one's left out. When I realized this was the direction the show was going in, I was so satisfied. This season is so completely bananas to me, it's ludicrous. Everything about it's insane. Episodes 1 through 12 all follow the structure that season 1 had. Foolish, small plots that effectively begin and end within the same episode. Then the whole Fenrath saga that lasts for quite literally the rest of the season plops itself in right after. No preconceived notion, no build-up, nothing, just drops in like a ton of bricks. It feels like a bunch of episodes that were originally left on the cutting room floor years and years ago were picked back up to pad out and lengthen this season. The first and second half are so drastically different from one another, it doesn't even feel like the same show. I don't know how to feel about season 3. I feel like whatever I think about it, good or bad, is opposite of how I should feel. You have undoubtedly the worst CGI in the entirety of the series, blended with the best writing the show has to offer. Monster by Mistake, what a polarizing show. Like season 1 and 2, there is something to grasp here, latch onto, and keep you there to have you watching. The extreme watering down of the visuals plays heavily towards creating a Monster by Mistake experience that feels almost unauthentic to me. What's here is good, the new settings, characters, conflicts, all that stuff, and I can realize it's good, but these aren't the same characters that made me laugh and smile from previous seasons, they just aren't. Remember when Sonic was able to turn into a werewolf or start having a love affair with a human and people collectively decided, this is not Sonic? How about when Bomberman turned into, let's just forget about that one. It's the same sort of thing here. Yes, I know this is Warren and Tracy, but I don't want to accept it as reality. My brain won't allow me to. Preparing myself to watch Monster by Mistake, really locking myself down and watching everything that it has to offer, the entirety, the grand scope of everything, and finally finishing it, I feel conflicted. In the grand scheme of things, as much as I hate to admit it, Monster by Mistake is not a good show. Half the fun of watching Monster by Mistake in the year 2020 is to see how poopy everything looks. The mix of rigid CGI and overly dramatic body movements was a deadly combination. A lot of the jokes intended to make kids laugh made me laugh as an adult because of the absurdity of it all. As crude as the visuals are now, Monster by Mistake came out the same year that Super Mario 64 did. When you think about that, it helps to put in perspective how graphically impressive this was during that time period, especially for a kids' TV show. The true nail in the coffin is that there's way too many filler episodes that focus on a bunch of bull that doesn't really mean anything. There's an episode called Night of the Living Meat that's about meat coming to life. What does this have to do with anything? Why does this exist? By the time episodes eventually became something to write home about, it was too little too late and people clearly lost interest by this point. I still feel like Monster by Mistake could be enjoyable to some people. I'm fairly confident that I could show you a random screen cap from a random scene, from a random episode, from a random season, and have you curious enough to be like, yeah, I kind of want to see what the hell's going on here. I unintentionally developed a soft spot in my heart for Monster by Mistake now. Although I can recognize that had I not held the show in my head as a nostalgic memory, that it couldn't have held my attention long enough to sit through anything more than a handful of episodes. Not everything Monster by Mistake has to offer is subpar. I think it actually had a ton of awesome stuff going for it. The voice acting is really good, spectacular even. I think everyone fits their respective roles surprisingly well and do a quality job of making each character's personality relatable in one way or another, Warren and Tracy especially. The premise is awesome too. The whole idea of a kid turning into a monster because of an uncontrollable magic spell was cool when I was younger and still is cool, honestly. There just isn't anything that complements the voice acting and premise well enough or even at all to make it worthwhile to stay watching for the long haul.
Is that what everyone thinks? That I'm a goof?
You bet, kid.
In conclusion, I'm offering two different routes you can go down for the optimal Monster by Mistake experience. If you want the Warren vs. Gorgul adventure I crave so badly, watch the first episode, then continue episode 2 as episode 13 from season 3. Boy, does that sound stupid to say out loud. For option 2, I'll once again recommend season 1, for those less inclined to dump as much time in as I did. If you want to laugh at outdated CGI, corny sound effects, and really cheesy humor, by all means, please watch season 1. Treat it like one of those so bad it's good sort of movies, you know? Because I came out of this with an overall positive light on the show, despite understanding its obvious weaknesses, I feel like I have some sort of duty to defend the show's honor from being remembered by most people as bleh or valueless. Even if Monster by Mistake is not a good show, it was able to make me laugh and not regret my time spent watching it, which is way more than I can say for other shows. From this, I can honestly say, I like Monster by Mistake. I like Monster by Mistake. I like Monster by... Excellent. Let's do that again. I like... Shh, shh, shh. Shut up! Shut up! Bro, I'm filming right now. What? You couldn't even find a jewel that looks like a jewel, for crying out loud? This thing is huge. Whoops. What does this say? Karu, Mari, Odana, Loma, Molyneux, Karana? Hello? Alright, who's messing with me? Oh. That sounds familiar. Hello everyone, welcome back once again to everyone's favorite bit of any Jazzbur video, that being, of course, the end slate. I haven't talked on an end slate in quite a bit, actually. So how are you guys doing? Did you guys enjoy the video? Did you guys enjoy the ending? And yes, that is a teaser of things to come. The next video, if you understood what that reference is from, the next video is all about that, and it's going, I'm working on it right now. I kind of worked on it back to back with this Monster by Mistake video a little bit, and it's going good. It's going really good so far. The script writing process is going smooth. Like, all the ideas of what I want to be on the screen visually is going really smooth, and I think it's going to end up being exactly how I want it to, which is pretty much how this video went. Don't expect near half-hour long videos that often from me, especially when it comes to watching every episode of every season of a television show. How long did I watch Monster by Mistake for? I'm actually going to Google this. Monster by Mistake wiki. Okay, we got 52 episodes. So we can safely assume that every episode was at least 20 minutes. So that's 1,040 minutes. So 1040 divided by 60. So spent 17 and a half hours watching Monster by Mistake. I think I'm going to be sick. Got a couple videos up on the screen if you want to check those out. Those are, of course, both gaming related. Click the little circle icon in the top right. You can subscribe to me if you think that's a thing that you should do that would improve your life. And yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful night, good day, whatever time zone you're at when you're watching this in the near future. And yeah, take it easy. Have a good one, guys.